Well, I'm going to take a moment to settle into a comfortable seating position. Just take a moment to drink in what's present, whatever's here in the body, whatever feelings of pain or pleasure, whatever's going in the mind, whatever state of peace or agitation or irritation or joy or any of the possible feelings. Just really see if you can get in touch with how this mind body is moving in this moment. And you might take a few deep breaths, really letting the exhale lengthen, just relaxing on the exhalation. And on your own time, you may let that go when it feels appropriate to you. And perhaps there's been a change in this mind body as a result of those deep breaths. You might let attention rest on the breath at the tip of the nose, just very lightly, a very gentle touch. And sometimes attention will leave the breath. That's to be expected. When that happens, the only thing you need to do is just gently bring attention back. Sometimes the mind will try and offer commentary about this being a bad thing or some kind of self-criticism. That's not necessary. Just bring attention back with kindness. You might notice if any tension has crept into your meditation, any contraction around the breath, any sort of force around attention. And if that's the case, you might see if you can simply let go. It's not needed here. Meditation is the art of relaxation. If you're forcing yourself to meditate, it's probably not the most helpful thing. Just receiving the breath very gently. Breath can be a very delicate little thing. Just receive it with a very light touch. And if you'd like, you may let attention expand from the tip of the nose to encompass the entire breath, from the nose to the bottom of the diaphragm. Just let all of that be received. Gentleness. You might think of the breath as a signal being broadcast into experience. There's nothing you need to do to receive it. Receiving simply happens. Sensations are simply present. Just notice, receive the breath fully. And you might let attention expand one more time to encompass not only the sensations of the breath, but all of the ancillary movements of the body associated with the breath. When the lungs fill, the body will often rock back and forth lightly. The position of the arms will change, the torso will shift, and the legs will shift as well. See if you can let attention receive those as well. Just letting all of those be known. Letting the mind open wide and really luxuriating in those physical sensations. Just letting the mind fully rest in the body. This way of meditation can often be extremely pleasant. Key is to fully let go into the wave of sensation, letting all the little details be known, fully relaxing into the flow of the breath, not opposing anything, just receiving. If you're noticing any pleasantness or joy or happiness, letting that be fully received as well. There's a flow of sensation associated with the breath. arising and passing away without any help from you. Simply let go into that. Just let go. Nothing needs to be in opposition to the breath. You are safe in this moment. There's nothing you need to be vigilant for. Simply let go into the flow. Perhaps there is joy with the dancing of the breath, maybe gratitude for being present in this moment. If so, just let go. Go into those feelings and experience them fully. Perhaps we might take this last minute to appreciate any benefit we found in this practice. Perhaps our state of mind is different, more pleasant, more wholesome. Perhaps we've had experience of peace, some quiet. Perhaps we have seen the world a little more clearly, and so we'll suffer less in the future. We may also take a moment to appreciate that any benefit that we've experienced here will spread to those around us as we act in the world in more skillful ways, as we spread our peace and happiness and joy to others. So thank you all for your practice. Hmm. Well, thanks for sitting with me, everybody. I always enjoy that. It's nice to see you, Jahan. I have a couple of announcements before we get started. Um, on May 10th, there's a dinner for the Sangha, and any Dhamma folks who are interested in coming together at 6:30 p.m. And on the 19th, there is a hike at noon, again for the Sangha or any Dhamma folks. And for those of you guys who like to sit with Dhamma, she's posted a few retreats for the summer and fall on the website. So you may take a look there if you're interested. All right, so tonight I want to talk about letting go of blame. Um, Blame is sometimes something of a guilty pleasure. I know it has been for me in the past. Just like a couple of reasons why we might turn to blame. First, blame lets us distract ourselves from whatever hurt we're feeling. Someone does something unkind to us, we don't like to feel that. But one way that the mind has to not feel that is to focus on the other person. You know, they're a bad person, they caused this and they shouldn't have done this and da 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 da. And the mind can go off into this and not have to deal with the hurt it's feeling. Blame is also it provides something of a feeling of safety in thinking that you have a way to prevent yourself from being hurt in that way again. You know, you identify the cause as this outside person, and you think that, you know, if I punish this person enough, or I do whatever to this person, they won't be able to hurt me again. Of course, it doesn't work that way. Lastly, there's often a feeling of self-righteousness that comes in with blame. And me, this was my particular foible. I very much enjoyed the feeling of being superior to others. You know, those other people doing bad things. I certainly would not do those bad things. And, it was this very, very unhelpful thing at times. That's another reason we like to blame folks. But I don't want to spend really any more time than that talking about why we like to blame people. I really want to talk about how to let go of that. I think we all know that blame is it's a pretty unskillful thing to do. But I want to talk about how to kind of let go. And so I'll offer three thoughts around that. The first thought is that it doesn't work in the larger sense of making the world a better place. Sometimes it might work in the small sense of getting whatever behavior you're concerned with stopped, but it doesn't make the world a better place. When you come at somebody from a place of blame, what you're effectively saying is, you are a bad person because you are doing this harmful thing. And I think you get maybe 3 different kinds of reactions when you come at somebody in that way. Either that person will not engage with you, will just not take your concern with any kind of importance, in which case you haven't done anything other than foster ill will in yourself. That person might respond in anger, in which case they will not change their behavior, and now they will be mad at you, and that anger will come back to you and perhaps stoke your own anger, and you set this unhelpful feedback loop in motion. Or they also might respond in shame. They might hear you telling them that they're a bad person, and they might take that to be true. And this is really the only case when someone's behavior might change, and it's certainly not a given. But even when someone feels shame and changes their behavior, they're still going to feel shame. So you may get the behavior stopped, but the person is still putting out that hurt and that shame into the world. So when you come at somebody from a place of blame, you're not making it any easier for them to change their behavior. You're making it harder, and you're probably not going to get a good outcome. The second thought is that blame hurts you. I spoke at the beginning of a couple of reasons why we might turn to blame, and those may feel good in a kind of small sense, but blame comes along with harm too. There's an analogy in the Visuddhimagga, which is one of the commentaries to the Pali texts that I want to share. This analogy is actually about anger, but it works with blame too. And so in this section of this Visuddhimagga, the author Buddhaghosa is talking about what to do when someone does something unkind to you. So I'll read here. But if resentment does not subside, and so he's talking to the person that's been wronged. But if resentment does not subside, then he should review the fact that he himself and the other are owners of their karma, of their deeds. Herein, he should first review this in himself thus. Now, what is the point of your getting angry with him? Will not this karma of yours that has blame as its source lead to your own harm? For you are the owner of your deeds, the heir of your deeds, and you will become the heir of whatever deeds you do. And this is not the kind of deed to bring you to full enlightenment, but rather this is the kind of deed that leads to your fall from the dispensation, to the manifold suffering of the hells, and so on. By doing this, by casting blame, by doing this, you are like a man who wants to hit another and picks up a burning coal in his hand, and so first burns himself. So by blaming others, you're trying to hurt the other person, whether maybe just emotionally, but also perhaps with other consequences in the world. But you're trying to hurt the other person, and in doing so, you're hurting yourself. You are fostering this unskillful state, this unwholesome state of mind. And this feels bad. We can feel that blame feels bad. And so it's like trying to hurt somebody by throwing a hot coal at them. You may hit them and you may hurt them, but by picking up that hot coal to throw it, you're hurting yourself as well. So the third thought I want to offer is that blame, it doesn't make sense when you understand the way the world works. So I'm going to tell a story. Maybe what you might do is, as you listen to the story, watch your mind for your reaction. Watch if feelings of blame, of wanting to blame this person, Watch if they arise, and then watch if they fade away too. So maybe do that while I'm telling the story. And this is a true story, by the way. So there's a man named Charles Whitman who was born in the early 1940s. And the way I understand his life is he was a pretty accomplished kid. He was very skilled with firearms, and he I think was like one of the earliest, one of the youngest Eagle Scouts ever, which is the highest rank in Boy Scouts. So after high school, he joined the Marines, and he like did so well in the Marines that he was sent off to college. They sent him to college to study mechanical engineering at the University of Texas. And he met his wife there, and his mom moved in to be near him. And so on August 1st of 1966, Charles Whitman, he killed his mother, he killed his wife, and then he went to the University of Texas and he climbed a tall building, and he shot and killed a bunch of people. And so before this occurred, so July 31st, he wrote a suicide note because he expected to die. I will read a bit from that. He says, "I do not really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable, and intelligent young man. However, lately, and I cannot recall when it started, I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts." He talks about going to the doctor for this. And he says, "After one session, I never saw the doctor again. And since then, I have been fighting my mental turmoil alone and seemingly to no avail. After my death, I wish that an autopsy would be performed on me to see if there is any visible physical disorder." And so it turns out there was this was quite a big event, and there were people trying to figure out what happened, and an autopsy was done. And what was found was that he had a tumor on his amygdala, and the amygdala is the part of the brain responsible for things like fear and anger. And the understanding of the medical doctors was that this tumor pressed on the amygdala and caused just unreasonable rage and anger to arise in him. So what did you notice about your feelings of blame? Did you perhaps notice a willingness to blame when you understood the story as him kind of killing these people for seemingly no reason? And did that blame possibly perhaps subside or go away when you heard about this tumor that was creating this homicidal rage through no fault of his own? And the reason this story is such a good teaching tool is that it makes it really easy to see the proximate cause of the shootings, and to understand that it wasn't his fault. Like he didn't choose to have this tumor. He didn't choose to have the doctor not be able to help him. He didn't choose to have these these homicidal thoughts going through his mind. So it's easy to see that he was the puppet of larger circumstances beyond his control. An analogy I think might be helpful here is to imagine Charles Whitman as this table of dominoes. There's a table and there's a line of dominoes set up, and this line of dominoes runs to maybe a glass at the end of the table, and they're set up so that when you hit the first domino, there's a kind of chain reaction, and the last domino hits the glass and knocks the glass off the table, and the glass shatters. And it's unfortunate that the glass shatters, but in this analogy, you wouldn't think to blame the domino that hits the glass. It couldn't do anything other than fall over because it was hit by the one before it, and so on and so forth. It's just this chain of cause and effect. And the only relevant difference between Charles Whitman and anyone else who may kill people in that same way. Or the only relevant difference is that it's easy for us to see the proximate cause of the shootings. But at the core of it, we are all these dominoes. We are all these bundles of cause and effect. And what happens is that, when it's easy to see the cause, when there's a tumor there, we can see, oh, it was the tumor. We can see that's the cause. But when it's, for most other people, the the chain of cause and effect is just so big and so complex. We don't have an easy story, and we do what the mind does, or the mind does what the mind does, and it simplifies things. It says there's a person in there, and the actions of the person happen to be bad. It says then the person is bad. They're bad for not doing something else. But it doesn't work like that. We do what we are conditioned to do. We're all these kind of tables of dominoes, and some folks are lucky enough to not have a domino set up, so they knock over the glass, and some folks are unlucky in that way, and end up hurting people. We really don't like to look at that very closely, the idea that there's not actually somebody there, making choices. I think I talked a bit about this last week, but we don't like to look at this because it provides us a sense of safety. If there's something going on in the world that we don't like, it feels good to think that, I have agency. I can, I can do something to perhaps avert this, this harm I see coming. It doesn't work like that. It's all dominoes. It's all cause and effect. There's always a sequence of cause and effect. And so when we look at these more complicated cases, when there's not kind of the tumor there explaining why things happened, it's really helpful to the thing that's helpful here is to understand that shift that you might have made when you were listening to the story of Charles, when you saw that his actions were not his fault. If you can make that shift with other folks too, that will help you let go of blame. And in fact, when you see that clearly, there's no room for blame at all. When you see that there's no separate person, there's no one in there that could choose other than they did. When you see that, there's no room for blame. Things could not have happened any other way than they happened. Maybe maybe like the logical next thing to think about, if you take that to be true, is that, well, does that mean that we all get to do whatever we want and there's no consequences for anything, and we're just all it's just all causes and conditions, so just do whatever? That's not the way we have to do things either. It's certainly not a helpful way to live. It is all dominoes. It is all cause and effect. But we can understand that if the dominoes are lined up in a certain way, they're going to knock the glass off the table. And if we don't want to knock the glass off the table, it's skillful to try and do things to change how the dominoes are lined up. So it's skillful to impose consequences on people when they are going to do something that's going to cause harm. The key is to look at it from the point of view of consequences. Our actions do have consequences, regardless of the fact that they're not coming from a separate being. They do have an effect on the world, and it's helpful to set up the effects in a way that's beneficial. And so it doesn't have to be done with blame or anger. It doesn't have to be. We don't have to come at somebody with, you are a bad person because you're doing this harmful thing. We can just come at them with, you are doing this harmful thing. So we can just come at it from a place of pragmatism, and maybe even kindness if you can manage it. someone's much more likely to engage with you or to see your point of view if you're coming at them with kindness. There's a sutta that I'll share, the Angulimala Sutta. I'll read part of it. This is Majjhima Nikaya 86. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, in the realm of King Pasenadi of Kosala, there was a bandit named Angulimala. He was violent, bloody-handed, a hardened killer, merciless to living beings. This is a rare sutta where the Buddha's words take a back. Oh, sorry. I'm reading the commentary to the sutta too. Okay, yes. So there's this bandit named Angulimala, which literally means something like necklace of fingers. He cut off the fingers of his victims and made them a necklace. So the Buddha is in this area, and the Buddha robed up in the morning and, taking his bowl and robe, entered Savatthi for alms. Then, after the meal, on his return from alms rounds, he set his lodgings in order, and, taking his bowl and robe, he walked down the road that led to Angulimala. The cowherds, shepherds, farmers, and travelers saw him on the road and said to him, "Don't take this road, ascetic. On this road there is a bandit named Angulimala. He is violent, bloody-handed, a hardened killer, and merciless to living beings. He has laid waste to villages, towns, and countries. He is constantly murdering people, and he wears their fingers as a necklace. People travel along this road only after banding together closely in groups of 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50, and still they meet their end by Angulimala's hand." So the Buddha continues on anyway. The bandit Angulimala saw the Buddha coming off in the distance and thought, "Oh, how incredible, how amazing. People travel along this road only after banding closely together in groups of 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50. Still, they meet their end by my hand. But still, this ascetic comes along alone and unaccompanied, like a conqueror. Why don't I take his life?" Then Angulimala donned his sword and shield, fastened his bow and arrows, and followed behind the Buddha. But the Buddha used his psychic power to will that Angulimala could not catch up with him, no matter how hard he tried, even though the Buddha kept walking at normal speed. Then Angulimala thought, "Oh, how incredible, how amazing. Previously, even when I've chased a speeding elephant, horse, chariot, or deer, I've always caught up with them. But I can't catch up with this ascetic, no matter how hard I try, even though he's walking at a normal speed." So he stands still and he says, "Stop, stop, ascetic." And the Buddha says, "I've stopped, Angulimala, now you stop." And so the sutta continues on, and I won't read the rest of it, but what happens is that the Buddha gives a teaching to Angulimala, which shows him the error of his ways. And so what we can take from the story is that's relevant in this situation is the Buddha's actions. So the Buddha was being threatened by Angulimala. So in the case when we are threatened by other folks, either verbally or physically, it's skillful to do things so that we're not hurt. So Buddha used his powers to make sure that Angulimala wouldn't be able to kill him. We may need to use other means, but so do something to keep yourself hurt and to minimize the consequences of this harm that's being done. But also respond in kindness and don't treat this person as a bad person or someone to be punished. Do what the Buddha did and treat him with kindness and give him something that's helpful. And so this can be our teaching in a place where somebody's causing us harm and we might otherwise try and blame. I want to talk about one final point. We talked about how blame doesn't make sense because we are all just these bundles of causes and conditions, and there's no separate self making choices. there's a teaching in Buddhism called the Eight Worldly Winds, or sometimes called the Eight Vicissitudes of Life. And these are eight sort of things that can happen in life. So there's pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and disrepute. And these are all things that, as we go through life, we may have more or less of them at any given moment. They're sort of like winds blowing on us. And just as when we see the world clearly, we can't really attribute blame to anyone, including ourselves. We also can't attribute any of these other things that we may gain in life to ourselves either. So all the good things that we have, we don't actually deserve them. Not that we shouldn't enjoy them or feel glad or feel grateful for having any of the nice things that we do, but they're not things that we can attribute to us. So if we have something like a job that we're very happy for, some possession that we like, we might say something like, well, I earned this job through my hard work and my good grades and all of my preparation for the interview and stuff like that. But if you look and take a step back from each of those things, you'll see that there's more causes and conditions behind them. So if it feels like you earned your job through good grades you've gotten in school, where did those good grades come from? Perhaps a cause of those good grades might be you had supportive parents, or you had time available to work extra on schoolwork. There's always something more. There's always another domino in the road. And so if you look at something really deeply, you'll see that there's nothing that can be attributed solely to you. And so it may be hard to detach from this, the idea that I've got my things through my own actions. But if you do, what that does is that really opens you up to just so much gratitude. I haven't done much traveling in my life, but I have made an effort to try and seek out other cultures and other ways of living online. And I've seen all sorts of things. Like many of them are very pleasant, but many of them are not. In this moment, I'm recalling this person who went to a refugee camp in South Sudan and spent an hour interviewing folks who had been living in that camp for a decade after the Civil War. I'm thinking of another interview that somebody did with a group of folks in I think Kenya that made their living combing through these great piles of electronic waste and pulling out cables and making their living by burning the insulation off cables so they could sell the wires for metal. And the interview kind of followed their lives and the health problems that came from being around all these toxic chemicals that were burning and leaching into their environment. Right now, there's some number of millions of folks in Chinese internment camps that are, in my understanding, being tortured with some frequency. And for that matter, there's the guards on the other sides of the camps that are committing those deeds. And the thing to note is that there's no difference between me or between you or between any of those folks, other than circumstances, other than our causes and conditions. I didn't choose not to be a guard in an internment camp. I didn't choose not to be born in China. I didn't choose to have whatever environment or whatever upbringing led those people to do that. It's just circumstances. And when you understand life that way, there's just so much gratitude for this great gift of all the wonderful things that we do have in our lives, because we didn't earn them. They're just gifts that we're given. Just God rolled the dice for each of us, and some folks got a high number. So when you see the world that way, there's really nothing left but gratitude and humility and compassion and kindness for the folks who have a more difficult life. That's what I would offer today. Thank you all for coming.